Hello and welcome to our first webinar of 2024. I'm Catherine Metters and I'm joined today with Ellice Whyte. And we have had a great sign up for this webinar, as no surprise, I think, considering the topic. Now, before I introduce Ellice, I want to just remind you of a few housekeeping pieces. If you've got any questions, and I'm sure there will be, please could you pop them in the Q&A box? And if somebody's already asked a question and you really want it answered, if you would just like to upvote it too, so we really can try and focus, because I know there'll be a lot of questions today. We are, as usual, recording this session, and you will be sent a recording of the session accompanying the email that you'll get afterwards with some resources and that sort of thing as well. So I think really we've got a lot to talk about. So I just want to let you know that Ellice is a business psychologist. So she combines, social psychology, how people tick with business practice. And with no surprise that if we actually get that right, she's able to help us provide inclusive and psychologically safe environments, unlocking all of our potential and actually the business as well. She's particularly passionate about workplace well-being and neurodiversity that you'll hear as we go along in the session today. And I think belief with a lot of us now, is absolutely fundamental we get this right, both from a moral perspective, but also gives us all a strategic advantage if we get it right. So no surprise, she's a busy lady working with a vast variety of different workplaces and educational settings. So we are really, really pleased to have us with us today. So I think really, actually, Ellice, I've said enough. I'm going to pass over to you. So take it away, and I'll see you for some questions at the end.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Catherine. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm really amazed to see such a great turnout. So I appreciate it. Yes, my name's Ellice. I'm a business psychologist. So I basically help people and businesses thrive. And a big part of my job is supporting well-being. So I'm delighted to speak with you today about such a common experience at work, anxiety. And I've got a number of tips to help us tame the anxious mind and reduce anxiety for others in the workplace. Now, to get us started, I should let you know that this is quite a interactive session, so I'd really like your participation, please. I'm going to quiz you, and I just want you to answer in the chat box true or false to clarify what anxiety actually is and maybe bust some myths as well. So the first one, stress and anxiety are the same thing. Please answer, is that true or is that false? Pop a true or a false in the chat box. Fantastic. I can see the chat is disabled, but now it's open. Fantastic. Thank you. I'm seeing, yeah, great. Lots of people saying that it is false. Absolutely. They are related, but stress is a response to a perceived threat or some kind of demand that is coming from an external source. And if you think back to prehistoric times, we developed the stress response that is often nicknamed the fight or flight. Yeah, the fight, flight, or flee response. And these were things that we developed to save ourselves from things like saber-toothed tigers. And the stress is the response to that threat, such as the tiger. Now, today we don't have tigers, but we do have many threats to our well-being, such as your work demands, personal conflicts, or financial difficulties. Anxiety, on the other hand, is often characterized by that excessive worry or fear. It's that unease or tension that you feel. And it might be that while the tiger isn't there, you just have this apprehension that one might be around the corner or might happen again. And it's there to keep us safe from past or future danger. And we often physically experience symptoms such as an increased heart rate, quickening of your breath, sweating, trembling, and of course, some psychological symptoms as well, where you might feel really fearful, extremely anxious, on edge, difficulty sleeping and concentrating. And it can have quite a negative impact on both your physical and your mental health if it is quite significant. So, what about the second point? The causes of anxiety are the same for everyone, true or false? Fantastic. I'm really pleased to see all the falses coming through here. Yeah, it's really important we understand that anxiety is triggered by a number of factors, and what causes anxiety for one person might not be the same for the other person. Um, Commonly, there's things to do with previous instances of stress or trauma. There might be a genetic factor, a medical condition, using substances. And a lot of the time, it's environmental factors, such as things to do with your social circles, sector resources, that can play quite a significant role in the development of anxiety. And even your personality can actually make you more susceptible for feeling anxious. So please recognise that it's not a one size fits all kind of condition. It's certainly something that we need to imagine that everybody is unique and understand their own experiences. So is anxiety normal? Let's discuss that next. True or false? Anxiety is normal. Fantastic. Looks like we're going to get a full house so far. Yeah, absolutely. It is a normal, totally natural human emotion. It's a natural response to something that we are worried about. And it's something that we'll all experience from time to time. And in fact, sometimes anxiety can be quite helpful in certain situations. Potentially, it motivates us. It might be that we're taking action to avoid potential dangers and avoid stress. But for some, it can become quite excessive, persistent, interferes with your daily activities and your quality of life. So if it is starting to do that, it might be a sign of an anxiety condition that requires some support or treatment. So lastly, anxiety conditions are rare and only a small percent are affected. True or false? Fantastic. You're spot on. It's actually quite common, and it can affect quite a significant percentage of the population. According to the World Health Organization, you've got 264 million people worldwide that could have an anxiety condition. And a recent study by Champion Health actually estimated that 58% of employees are experiencing at least mild symptoms of anxiety. We do see that younger people are more impacted. And generally, we're thinking that there's an increase of anxiety due to economic uncertainty, increase of use of technology, increased pressure and expectations in our current day to day. So, if 58% of employees are experiencing at least mild symptoms of anxiety, surely there's something in the workplace that we need to look at and be more conscious of. So, what do you think? What causes workplace anxiety? List as many triggers or ideas that you can think of in the chat, please. Superb. So we've got things like our workloads, absolutely, deadlines, difficult conversations, gossip, management, unclear objectives, yeah. Targets, too much workload, overworking, lack of support, understaffed, change, brilliant answer, definitely. Time pressures, calls out of the blue when you don't know what they're about. I agree. Yeah, we'll talk about those. Burnout, redundancy, threats, fear of failure, getting it right, definitely. Job security, unclear instructions. We're going to talk about some of these things. Definitely. Lack of psychological safety, brilliant answer. Superb. Security, travel, yes, micromanaging. Yeah, there's quite a lot, right? Um, And to make this interesting, I thought I'd take you on a bit of a journey through a typical workplace day to explore some of the common reasons we experience more and more anxiety. Because in my practice, there's actually so many common triggers that we as individuals can support, but also businesses often overlook. So I want to lay as many out over the course of a working day. So, if I may start with a Dolly Parton song, the impact of simply getting up for work can actually be a risk of anxiety. Now, I personally wouldn't choose to get up at 6:30 in the morning and drag myself out of bed. But for many of us, the main reason that we wake up first thing is because we need to get up and start our working day. And even the alarm itself can actually cause anxiety because it interrupts our sleep, it gives us a shock, which can actually increase your cortisol levels, and that remains for the rest of the day. Then you might have things like sleep deprivation, and that causes changes in our brain chemistry, leaving us quite susceptible to feelings of anxiety and stress. And studies do show that people who don't get enough sleep are more likely to experience clinical conditions such as anxiety. Also impacts how we cope with stress. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how rubbish it is when you're tired and you go to work, and that has an influence on your mood and productivity. Then, of course, there are physical conditions and loads of reasons why we might struggle to sleep. And I totally respect that it's easily said than done, especially for those of you with responsibilities like Litlands or demanding fur babies or health reasons or noisy neighbours. But we do need to try our best to try and get enough sleep or as close to it as possible. So if you do struggle, try to get that support, get some advice from your doctor, your EAP, and also consider what your sleep hygiene is like. It's something that we call sleep hygiene is the best practice. And you'd be surprised how many things that we perhaps could potentially change, such as what we do before bed, the temperature of our room, even the quality of our curtains can actually have an influence on our sleep. So yes, you've guessed it. There's a Dolly Parton song in the title here. Does anyone know what the next line is to this famous song? I'm going to wait to see if it comes. Yes, something. Yes, pour myself a cup of ambition. Thank you. Um, Now you guessed it, it's something about caffeine. I personally can't function in the morning without at least a cup of tea in the morning. But we've got to be conscious about our caffeine consumption. Now, generally, caffeine might be safe for most people, but excessive caffeine consumption can contribute to anxiety and other mental health concerns. For some people, the caffeinated drinks and food actually worsen symptoms of anxiety. I've got friends who actually are completely caffeine free because they have an anxiety condition and it really does exacerbate their symptoms. And that is because caffeine stimulates your fight or flight response. Has anyone had it where you've had a fair few coffees or teas and you get the shakes and your heart's racing, you can't sit still? Yeah, I totally appreciate that. It's literally releasing the same hormones that you get when you're stressed and anxious. So you get that nervousness, the jitters, the racing thoughts. And in some cases, excessive caffeine intake can actually lead to panic attacks. Plus, it interferes with your sleep, which I've just mentioned. So, it's really important that we consider our caffeine intake. So, for a healthy adult, your sort of healthy recommendation is 400 milligrams a day. So, that's about 4 teas or instant coffees. But be conscious that things like freshly brewed coffee is actually higher in caffeine. So it might be more like 2 or 3 cappuccinos instead. So just be conscious about how much caffeine intake you have. And remember, that's for a kind of general healthy adult. Maybe it might be a bit less for yourself. So just be conscious about what the impact of caffeine can have on you. And yes, it is very addictive. So we've got up early, been woken up by an awful alarm. We've had our morning coffees, and before we've even left the house, we've checked our emails. Okay. And I want you to imagine that you've opened up an email from the boss asking us to do something. And I'd like to ask you, which type of communication do you think could cause less anxiety and why? You've got two types of emails. Which one do you think is going to cause less anxiety? And also why? More engaging, yeah, the one on the right. Just actually nice on the right, yeah, shows more empathy, pleasing to read, less worry, absolutely. Right, less tense, more personable, bit chatty, caring, ask nicely, friendlier, more of a gentle approach, recognizes I'm a human, not a robot. I like that. Some emotional intelligence, yes, absolutely right. And many misunderstandings occur via messaging because often we're losing this kind of non-verbal communication. Um, and it's quite interesting when you look at the psychology between our interactions with our management and our interactions digitally. So, did you know there's a huge study that was done across 10 different countries, thousands of different respondents, and they found that our managers have just as much of an influence on our mental health as our partners do. Okay. So particularly because that email was coming from a manager, that could have the influence, could have more of an influence. Plus, there's other things in terms of how we communicate. So this type of writing might be a little bit outside of some comfort zones, but if you want some real data, even Adobe did a big piece of research looking at how people communicate to each others. And they found that people who used things like emojis and exclamation points, and also using more than 10 words in a short message, made people come across much more approachable and have more of a positive impact on their mental health. Um, so it's definitely something that I recommend in all workplaces to be conscious of your communication. We're more connected than ever, but it seems like we're just straying further and further away from mutual understanding. Um, so do be conscious about how we communicate. Top tips, try and be more personable, longer than 10 words for short messages, using emojis or exclamation points if it's appropriate, maybe a personal question, more polite sign-offs. Okay. And yes, it does depend on the context, but I think hopefully that can give you a little bit of a good start. So yeah, communication matters, especially from you managers. Okay. So my next question, what's your commute like? Does anyone love their commute? You're commuting to work, short and sweet, stressful, love it. 1 minute downstairs, yeah. 40 minutes in the car, yeah. No commute, drives, not bad. I hate it. Don't have one. Quick, yeah. An hour if I'm lucky. Wow. 2 hours each way, 2.5 hours each way. Yeah. It's a little bit of a mixed bag here, isn't it? So yeah, commuting is something that can often make us unhappy and anxious, particularly if you spend more than half an hour on public transport, like bus or something, according to the ONS. Traffic, transport delays, strikes, accidents, crowds, noisy environments, financial costs. Those are the things that can often impact how we experience anxiety. Plus, also about managing what we do on that commute. So it might be that we could leave a little bit earlier, find something that we can do to relax during that commute, explore alternative modes of transportation. Sometimes we can try and do some things to prioritize our mental health and maybe make it more manageable. So let's imagine that we're just getting off to work and we are driving, we're on the bus, we're on the train, and some of us might think, what do we do on that journey? Some of us might turn on the radio, watch the news or listen to the news, maybe scroll through social media for the entirety of the journey. So, what do you do during the commute? I can see some things, audio books, listening to the radio, sketching. Oh, that's great. Yeah, podcasts coming up a lot, scenery, sleep, looking at emails. Yeah, reading, mind wanders, Netflix, people watching. Art 70s, good choice. Excellent choice. Um, So let's think about media for a moment. It's true that listening to the news can actually contribute to feelings of anxiety and stress. You're getting a lot of negative news stories, overwhelming, sometimes exaggerated information, and the 24-hour news cycles are just constant. So it really does influence anxiety. Plus, there's related to social media, might be helpful to be quite mindful about how much your time you're spending on social media platforms and the kind of content that you're consuming as well. Because often that can lead to un unrealistic expectations, feeling like we're not good enough, comparison to other things, lots of fake news, you're absolutely right. Um, and it often presents this curated and edited version of people's lives. So it's not really a true reflection of reality. So be conscious about listening to the news, how much news you consume, limiting your exposure to things that could potentially trigger some more feelings of anxiety. Um, so think about your social media usage and also maybe what you do on that commute during the day, because that can certainly influence your anxiety. So we've not had enough sleep, we've drank loads of caffeine, we've checked our emails before we've even left for work, muted and listened to the radio on the drive in to hear about all that's wrong with the world. And we've not even got to work yet. And we've got all of these different points that could potentially trigger some anxiety. But let's say we've made it to work, probably made another coffee, and now our colleague has invited us to a meeting, but it just says meeting in the calendar invite. No agenda, no nothing. Does anyone else have that where people just put meetings in your diary, have no context whatsoever, just ask you for a chat? Even the other day, someone said to me, "Oh, can we have a quick chat?" And I was just thinking, "Oh my goodness, what's happened? Something's wrong," and so on. And you just spiral. And especially when there's certain points of the day as well. So yeah, just those meetings and catch up, not having any kind of context can absolutely trigger anxiety and stress. And actually, anxiety is often triggered by meetings, especially if we're not sure what this is about. Our thoughts might catastrophize. We're thinking things are going wrong, someone's in trouble. And there's something that we can all do to each other is to just say why we're meeting. Okay. So I fixed this meeting invite. Okay. If you're meeting to discuss something, maybe just pop a little note to say, this is what I want to talk about. And I like to take it one step further and just let somebody know whether or not it's really important or if it's something that could wait, especially because we often have access to other people's calendars. You might be booking time in with somebody and they've got a deadline and they've got lots of busy things to do that day. And if it's something that can wait, I'd really appreciate somebody telling me, because then I can say, hey, I've got a deadline. Can we talk about this tomorrow? promise we'll follow it up another point, but let me get this done first. So yeah, try and pop things in to say it's not urgent. If you've got something else to prioritize, we can meet next week or so on. Okay. My next question then, how many of you take your break time without working? So this is now a poll question, if you're happy to answer this one. Do you take your full break time without working? And do you do it away from your workplace? I knew someone was going to say, what break? No chance. Sometimes, probably no. Don't get a full break. Interesting. Do vote on that poll. Feel free to add a little bit of info in that chat. I feel guilty. Yeah. Depends on the day. Appreciate that. Sometimes you work finish earlier. Okay. Try and take 10 minutes. Yeah. Eat at my desk. Many people do. You don't break. Don't break. But some people are saying, yes, I do try and take those breaks as much as possible. Some of you manage a coffee, not always manage to drink it. I appreciate that. Now, it's really important that we take and encourage breaks. Yes, I'm not surprised that we do see more of us who don't really take a break, and quite a few of you do take a break, but you tend to just sit at your workplace. So, how much of a break is that? If you're still keeping an eye on your emails or watching those Teams messages come in. Working through our lunch or not taking any kind of breaks can really have an influence on our mental health and cause anxiety. Someone mentioned burnout earlier. You know, if you're not taking breaks, you're going to increase your risk of burnout, which is that state of absolute exhaustion, often caused by prolonged stress. It also influences feelings of anxiety, irritability, and of course, decreases your productivity. Um, I know a lot of people might think I don't have time for a break because I've got such a busy workload, I've got this, that, and the other to do. But actually, taking breaks increases the productivity. It gives us a chance to rest and recharge, and also could influence our physical health as well, because if we're sitting for prolonged periods of time, things like back pain, posture contributes to feelings of anxiety and stress. So if I may encourage you to just take a moment and have a bit of a stretch, okay? Try and release those shoulders, unclench the jaw, okay, unclench the fist. Try and consider how much tension you hold onto your body when you've only been sitting for a short period today. And imagine how that would feel if you didn't do that consistently. So, to mitigate those issues, it is important to take regular breaks throughout the day. And if you weren't already encouraged, here is a piece of research that was actually done by Microsoft where they looked at back-to-back meetings. These were all done through online meetings. Okay. So many of us will have back to back Teams or Zooms or whatever kinds of meetings. And often they're the hallmark of why we're not taking our breaks. And this study put a team of people through 4 different meetings. You had team one, who had no breaks whatsoever and just had to do that meetings. The second group had 10-minute breaks in between each meeting where they did a non-work related activity. And what you can see is the coolness, or the blues and the greens, is visualized here in the lack of stress. They're more relaxed. And then you've got the reds and the yellows. That is the influence of stress. Okay, suggesting more build up as the meetings progress. So we do need to shift our mindset away from this concept that we don't have time to take a break, or we've got too much to do, so we shouldn't take a break. It's actually the opposite, because you'll probably feel more productive if you've given yourself that chance to de-stress and relax. Even just those 10 minutes, look at the difference between team A and B. Okay. They were also interviewed, all of these people, and they said that they felt more relaxed and also more creative. So perhaps the work that you do will be a better quality as well. So find break activities to calm the mind. And if you are somebody that really struggles to get any time away, even 10 minutes, look at the difference. Okay, 10 minutes non-work related activity away from your workspace. And you should feel more refreshed and recharged for the next meeting. Now, somebody has already mentioned about feedback and unrealistic expectations or unclear expectations. Um, so we've worked through our lunch, we've had back-to-back meetings, and now we're ready for the afternoon slog. And imagine that our boss has requested us to complete a task, such as building a brick wall, and wasn't clear on what they wanted or how they expected to do it, or you don't have the tools to do it very effectively, maybe the training or even the time to complete it. So naturally, we feel more anxious. And those clear expectations, regular feedback, they're so essential for the workplace. And it really has an influence on anxiety. Clear expectations, it reduces your uncertainty. When you know what's expected of you, you're less likely to feel anxious. And it also helps the quality of the work, as you can see by this photo. Regular feedback as well, that provides that sense of direction. So, you know how you're performing, what you're doing well, what you can improve on. It also boosts our confidence. And if you do receive regular supportive feedback, then you feel more confident in your abilities. You're likely to be more motivated and engaged with the work. And it really does alleviate feelings of self doubt or that imposter syndrome that I'm sure many of us understand. And that is often strongly linked to anxiety. Plus, it prevents mistakes, improves safety. It just has such a knock on effect in a positive way. So I literally say to my clients, it pays to praise. Feedback, clear expectations. There are so many knock on effects to have, not just a morally supportive, psychologically safe influence on your workplace, but also financially, productivity wise, all of those things will improve. Then we are progressing throughout the day, and no doubt many of us that are desk workers or spend a lot of time driving, we are very quite static and have minimal movement throughout the day. And when we do sit for long periods of time, our bodies can become so stiff and tense, and that also contributes to anxiety. So exercise and movement, we're trying to release the tension. It releases endorphins. It can improve our mood, reduce anxiety. Physical health is improved. I could go on and on here. So it is important to prioritize some kind of regular movement. And I'm not saying that, we have to do physical workouts every day, but it's things like taking a short moment to stand up, maybe release the shoulders, okay? And even 10 minutes of a brisk walk can reduce anxiety and stress. Um, so yeah, as one of the big supermarkets say, every little helps. Try and get a little bit of movement where you can. Doesn't always have to be strenuous to have a good influence. So we've made it to the end of the working day. Anxiety is running pretty high. So what do we do? Often maybe finish the day with a drink. And of course, alcohol has an influence and a significant impact on anxiety, both in the short term and also the long term. Short-term effects, alcohol is a depressant. So it slows down your brain function, can initially make you feel more relaxed, but ultimately you often increase feelings of anxiety, irritation, and also depression. Longer term effects, then again, continuous changes in brain chemistry, increased anxiety over time because it does disrupt your chemical balances and neurotransmitters, essentially just altering the chemical makeup of our brains and how they function. But sadly, many people do turn to alcohol as a coping mechanism. We call it self-medication sometimes, where they're using this as a way to cope with stress or anxiety. And while it can provide that initial temporary relief, it ultimately makes things worse, leads to cycles of dependence, health issues, mental health, and physical health. So it's important to remember that it isn't a solution. And if you are struggling with stress and anxiety, or any kind of like alcohol or drug concerns, then please reach out to get support here. So we've had a few beers, we've headed home after a very long anxiety-fueled day. And my final question for you is this. Who checks their emails or communication channels like Teams, Slack, so on, outside of work all the time? Me. Some of you are good, some of you say no, rarely, wouldn't do that. No, sometimes. And then people are saying, yeah, I used to do it. Sadly, yes. Me. Yeah, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? Not being able to switch off from work during your out of hours absolutely increases anxiety. And as a business psychologist, this is one of the main causes that I see that causes poor employee well-being and contributes to poor cultures. When we're constantly connected through work, through our emails, phone calls, digital means, it's really difficult to relax, disconnect, and it just causes a lot of stress and anxiety, burnout, fatigue, and other mental health issues as well. And it's very difficult to separate your work life from your personal life if you are having these constant demands. Um, So it's really important that we set some clear boundaries here. But I feel that this has to come from both you as an individual, but also from the workplace and management as well. If you are an individual, an employee, set your own boundaries, set specific times of day for checking your work related communication. Try to turn off notifications outside of work. If you're like me, I use a smartphone and a smart watch. You can actually set the settings so that you get notifications from some things at certain times a day, and then it turns it off. So come 6 o'clock this evening, all of my comms channels, emails, and even certain people, I will actually mute those notifications until 8 o'clock the next morning. And then vice versa during working times, everything swaps. And I actually mute a lot of my social things so that whilst I'm at work, that's more focused to work. But it's also got to come from your management, your senior leaders, from your business. You also need to set that boundary for yourself, but also respect that for other people as well. Because often we are looking towards our managers and recognizing they're not taking breaks, they're emailing me at 8 o'clock in the evening and feel obliged to follow the same suit. So it is important that we kind of practice the same things here. And also, managers, your well-being is really important too. And yeah, schedule send those emails. That's such an important thing. I know that you've got flexible working. Some of you may work in international organizations where it's a 24/7 thing. But that's why, you put in your emails what your time frame, what your time zones are, what your working hours are, and so on. And I know I'm not blind to the fact that it's easier said than done. And at times we might have to work through our lunch breaks and send emails urgently or we have to sit at our desks and have our lunch breaks there. Um, but it's just making sure that you're conscious of how these things might impact you. And at times, many people feel obliged to do them. And I like to question why. Is it something that is an expectation that you find is coming from the workplace and the culture? Because that needs to be addressed there. Or is it something that we've put on ourselves? Because sometimes we do that. We do feel that we put these pressures on ourselves to make sure that we're online all the time, that we're always switched on. So it's really important we set our own personal boundaries as well. Now, there's so many other things to consider. It's not just the things that I've spoken to you about today, particularly if, financial factors. They say money can't buy happiness, but it can buy less stress and anxiety, because financial instability, of course, will lead to uncertainty about meeting your needs, whether it be present or the future, and that contributes to our anxiety. It can also arise from concerns with our physical health, injuries, potential illnesses. That often provokes fear and that sense of anxiety as well. Menopause can induce anxiety due to hormonal changes that influences the mood and emotional regulation. People with neurodiverse conditions may experience more anxiety due to the challenges of the world being more designed for neurotypical people. And unfortunately, our environments aren't always accommodating to people's needs or differences. I mentioned earlier that even personality traits can predispose you to perceive things as more threatening or stressful, meaning that there could be the likelihood of more anxiety. And finally, even what you do in your free time can actually have an influence. I have had so many conversations over time where I've asked people what they're up to in their free time, and they're binge watching documentaries about true crime and serial killers and things like that. So when I saw this image, I thought, yeah, that's really true. A lot of people often exacerbate their anxiety due to the things that they might read or spend their free time doing. So, what do we do then? Anxiety is such a common experience, especially in the workplace. And the causes of anxiety varies, and some of these things might really resonate with you, other things may not. But it's really important that we consider not just ourselves but other people and the influence that our behavior might have on other people's anxiety. Okay. Um, so if you do want support for yourself, there's so much out there. You can, of course, in the workplace, talk to your HR. If you've got an EAP provider, an MHFA team, mental health first aiders, have a look at the resources that you've got within your organisation. Additionally, there's things outside of work, like a variety of online resources, charity support such as Mind and Shout, which is a listening service done by text message. And they offer loads of help on anxiety management. And we will send you a list of signposts in our follow-up emails. But I'd also want to encourage anyone who is experiencing anxiety that's disrupting their day-to-day life, have a chat with your doctor, reach out to a counsellor. They'll be able to advise you better on your individual circumstances and also how to get that support. And many people don't realise that you can actually self-refer to the NHS Anxiety and Depression Service. So you can actually self-refer yourself to counselling as well. So here we go. Here are our top tips for taming the anxious mind. We mentioned that there was 10, but I've given you a bonus one on the 11th. And I just want to reiterate again, if you don't feel anxious yourself, remember that your actions may trigger someone else's anxiety. So, being conscious about how we communicate, how we set agendas, how we, invite people to go for a drink with us. Those kinds of things can actually influence anxiety for others. And I think that we do need to do better working together to create a more supportive and understanding workplace culture where we can all take some steps towards taming anxiety and thriving at work. So let's try and build this more supportive community that values our mental health and reduces anxiety. Okay. Finally, are there any questions? Thank you so much for listening so far. Are there any questions on what we've discussed?
Well, it'd be no surprise to hear, Ellis, that we had a whole lot of questions in advance, as well as I'm sure there are going to be other ones coming in now. I'd just like to make a comment. I think just listening to you, I think so much of this is about open communication, isn't it? You know, telling people what makes you feel anxious and asking people whether they can do something about it. Just being a two-way street, actually, because we're all different, aren't we?
Yes,
And yeah, it's so much of it's common sense when one actually is prepared to be honest and open. But that's sometimes difficult too. So it's a difficult one. Right,
definitely.
let's get on with some questions. So the first one we've got is, do neurodiverse employees require different or additional considerations for reducing anxiety? I don't really want to start with that, or just I'll read the whole question and then you can do it. Are
Okay.
there workplace causes of burnout for neurodiverse employees which aren't present in neurotypical staff? Over to you.
Yes, there are some differences that we do need to be mindful of. And the second part of the question is quite interesting,
Mm.
because actually a lot of the reasonable adjustments that you can make for a neurodiverse person will actually be quite supportive for everybody. And so yes, there are going to be different triggers, okay? Let's take sensory sensitivity as a really specific one. Some workplaces are really loud, they're really bright, they might have interesting smells and things that just can be sensory overwhelm for an individual with a neurodiverse condition. So there are things that we do need to be mindful that people may have different or additional triggers that we can try and accommodate. But often if you accommodate those, it does help many people. One of my favorite ones is to do with slide designs, making sure that the colors aren't overly bright, there's not too much on the screen, not too busy transitions, not too much text, the colors and the font. Those are all influencing people, um, and helpful for those who might have dyslexia, for example. But it can also help everybody in terms of how they learn, how they focus, those which have visual impairments, like myself, wearing glasses. If you have too many bright colours, that can make your eyes really tired. So yeah, some of those reasonable adjustments, really important for those with those neurodivergent conditions, but definitely can also be very beneficial for everybody.
Do you know that's so in line with ergonomics? I mean, it's the same.
Yeah,
You improve it for people. You improve it for everybody, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
and yeah. Got another question here. How to support colleagues and patients who have emotional issues? How to add fun into work where it's actually quite serious, the job that you do?
So everybody is unique. Okay. If you want to support somebody with an emotional concern, then you want to understand who that person is as an individual. Yeah, it's not a one size fits all approach. What works for me is not going to work for everybody else. And so the best thing you can do is just understand that person's unique perspective and identify what they feel that they need. So it's about having that honest conversation and allowing them that sense of safety to talk to you, share if they're happy to share, but at least asking them, what can I do to support you? What can the business do to support you? Is there anything that we can do to help? And yeah, treating them as an individual, not just a one size fits all or a tick box kind of reply. What was the second half of that question? Sorry, Catherine.
It was just how to add fun when there's quite a serious side to the job.
Again, we're all unique, right? What I find fun is not going to be the same for everybody else. Let's say social situations for an example. You might think, oh, let's unwind and go for a drink or unwind and have a chilled out coffee meeting where we all sit in a circle and just have a chat. For some, that is not going to be fun. Yeah. And we've just got to start understanding that everybody's different and that we don't have to pigeonhole everybody into a certain box and assume that this one size fits all approach is fun for everybody. For some people, fun might be sitting in a nice quiet space by themselves with a nice herbal tea and sensory safe, all of those kind of lovely things, or being at home with their families, and that's what they need.
Do you, yeah. Do you know that links in so well with actually a question we've got, which says, what can I do to show my company that everyone works best under the same circumstances and to be more tolerant of differences, e.g., office based and home based? Any top tips to demonstrate to people who are struggling to understand that we need to look at people as individuals?
Mm. Well, 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent. So often, if I have people who are, if I have directors, senior leaders who are not quite as understanding or accommodating of people's differences, um, usually I kind of give them all the data and the kind of financial reasons. And like, I hate to bring people into a number or a statistic, but sometimes you've just got to tailor how you communicate to something that they will understand and find tangible evidence. And
Mm.
so when you kind of look at data, it's very objective, isn't it? So that's sometimes it's not just about talking about the subjective needs of people, but then you can also look at some of the objective data to really prove that there's people with neurodivergent conditions and going through different circumstances in life and look at the evidence that allowing for differences can really influence and unlock potential within the workplace. If you've got a divergent workforce, you're more likely to have more creativeness and there's so many values. I could honestly go on and on. It's hard to
The proof's in the
summarize in a
pudding,
short.
isn't it? Sometimes you've got to sometimes try some things, agree to a trial, and then have an honest discussion as to how it went, and hopefully it's gone in the right direction.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
there's an interesting one here. What's the biggest mistake managers make when it comes to reducing their subordinates' anxiety? And what's the biggest make subordinates make? And what can both do to correct their mistakes? Can you identify what you think is the biggest problem here?
Biggest problem. Do you know, I must say that I think it does depend on your type of organization or the type of work that you do, because I work in a number of different industries. So, I could say that, within healthcare, there's this particular thing, and within an office-based work, then it's this particular thing. Um, I think that in terms of management, the biggest mistake is not getting to know your team beyond the workplace. Yeah. And that can have so many benefits for other things, not just anxiety. But yeah, just getting to know people as people and not just as an employee.
Mm.
That's the kind of management side of things. And then in terms of the biggest mistake an employee makes, I'd maybe say boundaries. That's kind of difficult at times because often we do want to, um, show up for work, be our best selves. We might be wanting promotion. We might be nervous about redundancies. It's really difficult to kind of set boundaries when you're going through certain circumstances. But a lot of the things that I talked about in this sort of breakfast to bedtime thing, um, it's there are small changes that you can can make, like drinking more water, for example, and less caffeine, and kind of setting those boundaries, because often in a workplace, all you've got access to is mostly teas and coffees. So
Mm.
things like that, setting boundaries.
I think one thing that comes to me is, and we've talked about some of the negative things of work that cause anxiety. I think we have to remind ourselves actually that good work is actually very good for us. And actually, if you do have your expectations and the boundaries and you don't have the triggers, actually it does help, doesn't it? Because you know where you are. So
Yeah,
I think, good work is good for you and poor work is poor for you, isn't it? And we've got those great opportunities within work to make such a big difference to people's lives, which I think is quite exciting if we get it right. Um,
exactly. And we can't completely eradicate stress and anxiety, because, and to be honest, that could be more harmful, because at times we do have to go through challenges to build resilience.
mm,
And often I've found some people who maybe haven't had stressful situations that actually really struggle much more when they are in these such stressful circumstances. So at a point, it kind of builds resilience,
mm.
but it depends on how chronic that stress is, or that anxiety is, and how often it happens, for example, could be really detrimental.
Yeah, yeah. This is a very specific question. You may not know the answer. Do you know if the self-refer service to the NHS anxiety and depression is available in Scotland? Are you aware of that, or is that something we're going to need to look up?
It's called something different.
Okay.
Um, I have a client based in Scotland, so I do know that it does exist, but it's called something different.
Shall
And
shall we pop it in
annoyingly,
the email that we send out afterwards? We can unless you can quickly look up now.
I'm going to quickly look it up,
Oh, thank you.
but yeah, do have a do
Yeah,
have a do know that it does exist. Um,
just called something different.
in the UK, they actually used to call it IAPT, improving access to psychological therapy, but they
Mm,
renamed it to the Anxiety and Depression Service, and so I think in Scotland they've changed it.
mm.
Okay,
Okay, okay. Well, we can pop that in the email if we can find it. So
cool.
that's fine. Um, is anxiety covered by disability discrimination or the Equality Act, or would that only be depression?
Any mental health condition, and there are many different types of anxieties that are considered under the Equality Act. Plus, you'll also find that anxiety is a comorbid condition, so often linked with other types of disabilities, such as neurodiversity, and many others. So, yeah, it's protected, and it's protected in different ways, I would say.
Mm, no, that's good. It's a nice simple one on.
Yeah.
Any tips for encouraging colleagues to take their lunch breaks away from the workstation?
I would just ask. I would just say, do you want to take a break? And I just have that honest discussion and say, I've noticed that you sit at your desk throughout your lunch break, and that's entirely your choice. I wouldn't like force this upon anybody. But just say, I really do encourage you to take a bit of space away from this, and if I had a good enough relationship, I might even say, come and have a break with me, and let's go and have a chat in the break room. I've seen some places do it mandatory, where they have like policies that sort of say no food at desks and so on. I think saying no food at desks is fine, but do remember that not everybody's going to feel comfortable to be in a social environment whilst they're having their lunch. So I just have a conversation with them and say, hey, I've noticed that you take your lunch or things at your desk quite frequently. I just wanted to check in, see how you're feeling. Not mandatory, but I went to this amazing webinar and learned it's good. No, I'm joking. That it's good for your well-being, and I don't
Yeah,
want you to feel like you have to sit at your
yeah.
desk. Yeah.
I mean, we're quite good here. We have a number of people go out walking, and they'll just say, "Oh, do you want to come for a walk?" And you go, "Oh, mate," and they go, "No, actually, I can." And just
Go for a
sometimes it's
walk.
just that little
Yeah.
nudge, isn't it, by somebody saying, or do you want to just come and grab a coffee and a sandwich, and that type of thing. So I think little nudges for us all, I think, are very useful, aren't they?
Yeah. I sometimes need it. I'm one of those that can get quite hyper focused, and sometimes I actually get quite forgetful of what time it is. So I tell people in my work environment, if you think I've got into myself into a hyper focus, tell me to get up and go get a glass of water or go for food. I've invited that
Yeah.
discussion. So
I think
and
some,
we do it
yeah.
for each other.
I
Mm.
think something we've said in the past, and we've had actually a lot of comments on the chat about this, is, animals, dogs, they quite often
Yeah.
get you up for away from your desk and things like that, don't they? So I think, well, one for our canine friends there, I
Mm.
think, on that one.
And
We have,
cats.
oh, and
Mm.
cats, and
I've
I
seen
suppose
cats
actually there'll be many others as
on the
well.
desk. I've
But
seen chickens, ferrets, all
sheep,
sorts, man.
don't forget the
Sheep.
sheep.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen all
No,
sorts on Zoom
I
calls nowadays.
I think actually, yes, our colleagues and our extended colleagues, I think, are always worth thinking about. Anyway, Ellis, we
Yeah,
are out of time. Thank you
thank you.
so much for today. I think that's been really helpful. And actually, I had a little stretch all the way through. I actually feel quite relaxed, and I'm on my way actually. So that's great. So thank you. Can I just remind everyone the recording of this is coming out to you with an email with some resources as well. And I hope that you will join us for our next webinar on the 28th of February, which is all about sit, stand, and active working, and trying to avoid the dangers of sedentary working. So feeds in very nicely with what we've been talking about today. So please sign up for that. The email will go out on Monday. Please join us again, and thank you once again, Ellis, and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye,
Yes, thank
everyone.
you, everyone.